one thing that I know that a lot of people say or use the term audit proof, and I wanted to touch on that. There's no such thing, right? But
I
right,
hate that term. I hate that term.
I know, because it's like there's no such thing. You can't stop yourself from being audited, but you can set yourself up to where if you are audited, like if I got audited tomorrow and they were look justify all these business purchases, absolutely,
you would be able to.
I would be great because I am terrified of that, so I don't do anything wrong. I follow pretty much everything.
And that's all an audit really is.
Yeah.
Audit is a bad word, but in reality, it's just asking for verification.
Yeah.
So if you look at it that way, if you get a letter that's saying you're being audited, like, don't panic. They just need more information or need to verify something, and don't borrow more trouble than there is.
Hello and welcome to Splitting Seams. My name is Shannon and I am your host. So today's guest is my tax lady. Now, before all of you run away, it's my opinion that this episode is not scary and hopefully not boring. This is one of the episodes I've been looking forward to since I had my guest list going. I really wanted to have the opportunity for me to talk to my tax lady and help kind of demystify a lot of the concepts, ideas, and terminology about taxes and how they relate to our small businesses. So business taxes as a whole is extremely intimidating for a lot of us. There's a lot of misinformation, a lot of misunderstanding, and a lot of mistrust from the sources in which you're trying to get this information from. Either you're getting it on social media or there are various answers to the same questions and you're not sure which one is true, or it's locked behind a paywall, either a big firm or a website that is going to charge you for certain things you shouldn't be charged for and maybe explain them to you in terms that don't actually apply to your business, but it enables them to get a couple extra bucks in their pocket at your expense. And so I know I've been there before I found Ket and my previous tax lady. I was very confused. It was very overwhelming. And I myself had a lot of misunderstandings and misconceptions about things that I needed to be doing or things I didn't need to do. And I have found that to be true for a lot of others. And so what I really wanted to do was provide a space that is comfortable, that explains these things from the perspective of a small business owner in our bag making community. So you can understand maybe how we account for thread, how we account for the materials in our bag, how do we track these things, what do all these different terms and this different jargon and all these acronyms mean? And how can I put them into maybe into terms that are just slightly more easy for me to digest and understand so that when I do go to a tax professional, I have a basic understanding of these terms and these concepts and ideas, and it can just be helpful for you. And so I know this is a long introduction to the interview, but I just wanted to explain why I had her on, because she is not necessarily a part of the sewing community. She is adjacent to it. And you'll learn a little bit more about that in the episode. Before we get into the episode, please know that none of the information that we are providing today is intended to be tax advice or legal advice. So please don't sue us. All right, get ready to take some notes. Let's get into the episode. Hey, Ket, welcome to Splitting Seams.
Hi, nice to be here.
I'm so happy that you could make it. I know that you are getting ready to embark on like the busiest, craziest part of the year for you that lasts far too long and probably comes way too soon. But I'm so glad that you made the time and we could make it happen before things get super crazy.
Boy, and it snuck up this year too. Like, this is my first day of appointments and I was not ready. So.
Oh man.
But we got through it.
Yeah, I probably could have gotten you in the last episode, but I probably should have before things got crazy.
As long as it's not April 10th, we're good.
Oh, that's fair. That is totally fair. I have been there at the end of tax season submitting stuff right to the deadline, and that is terrifying, and I don't imagine it's any more fun on your side of it.
No, and it's the same trap I fall into. I'm not sure I have filed on time without extensions in 3 or 4 years now. So even the people doing the taxes don't do their taxes on time.
But you know the rules way better than we do, so
Yeah,
it's
we can get away with it.
maybe a little less scary. But so for those that don't know, Ket, you are my tax lady.
I am.
So she is someone who handles the accounting for my business. She handles essentially, she knows all about the money that comes in and out of my business, and she does my personal taxes. And that's been going on for a couple of years now. And so I really wanted to have you on because I think that there's a level of authenticity that happens when we have this conversation, and it happens between the tax professional and that tax professional's client. And it really, I think it takes a lot of the discomfort out of it, and it adds maybe hopefully a level of, again, authenticity and trust to it.
Yeah, and hopefully it demystifies some of it too, because the big beautiful bill that just passed was like 250 pages by itself. So tax code is huge and complex, and I want to do anything I can to try to relate it to terms that regular people understand.
Exactly, because it's the jargon. It's not necessarily the big picture stuff.
I call it the Greek.
Yeah, that tends to terrify us. It's how do I translate this into normal terms so that I can understand it? Because I've just read 5 words and I don't know how they pertain to anything in my business. So and that's where the breakdown happens.
I joke that I understand the words, but when you put them together, I lose the meaning. So that's the IRS in a nutshell to me, at least.
That is perfect. Okay. That's all things if it's not sewing for me, truly. Okay, so if you could please introduce yourself and your business, a little bit of your backstory, all that good stuff.
Yeah, sure. So my name is Ket Doran. I run Bookkeeping by Ket. It is an accounting and tax pro firm with a target towards small businesses like Shannon's. We started a couple years ago. I had a previous employer who kind of taught me the ropes, and then we parted ways and I split off on my own, and things have been going really good. I do everything from payroll, sales taxes, regular tax returns every year, quarterly tax returns, quarterly payroll returns. Basically, if it's in the tax code and it's not an estate or a trust, I do it. So I cover pretty much everything. I try to work with people who maybe traditional CPAs would miss. So if you're in that spot between like you're too big to be able to kind of handle it all mentally, but you're too small to go to like an actual CPA firm, that's who I want to target, right? I want the people who kind of get lost in the small versus big thing. So I call them the micro businesses. So I'm really versed in small business taxes. I do a lot of Schedule C stuff, which is a sole prop, which we'll get into later. Like I said, I do sales taxes, payroll, pretty much everything that a small business person would need, hopefully.
Yeah. So for me, you've been doing, so actually I was with your previous employer. And then, so I'm going to tell a little bit of story about my taxes, and then that leads into how you became my tax lady.
Sure.
I don't know how many people just call you their tax lady, and I don't know if that is...
It works.
Okay, if it works or not, because that's just in my heart and soul, you're my tax lady. I love it.
That works.
So I started out my business, technically became legit, and at the end of 2020, because we backtracked all of 2020 and 2019, which was a nightmare to do 2 years for the first time all at once, terrifying. But a friend of mine, in 2020 with COVID and everything, it was a lot of us, myself included, made a ton of masks. And so the transaction amount that we normally had went way up. And my friend and I, Maria, we were like, we are probably not doing this correctly, and we probably should.
Hey, props for thinking that, though. A lot of people just keep on going and don't even question it. So
it's that avoidance for sure.
It's scary.
It is. The big thing with us is like there's this whole like mentality as a military spouse of like what you do and can reflect on your military spouse's career, especially when it comes to financial things and stuff like that. It is a big deal to to kind of get in trouble that way. It can reflect, and you just don't want to do anything to do that because that impacts your livelihood as well. So we made that choice, and we were actually part of the first. There was a kind of a workshop to teach us a little bit about how to track inventory and sales and things like that, how to break down all those costs. And so we were in that first one. We learned it all, and so for a couple years we were doing great. And during that time, we were with your previous employer. Some stuff happened. That previous employer, that business kind of went kaput a little bit. And that was right in the midst of me making a big change. And so it was 2023. Sales went up for me quite a bit. And so
it was the S-Corps swap, wasn't it?
It was when I was supposed to do the S-Corps. And so I was previously, again, we'll get into all these terms later, but I was previously a sole prop. And so I need to transition to an S Corp, which is just essentially they take a lot more money out and they treat your business as like a kind of a little bit bigger deal. Also, please know I'm not an expert, and Ket is going to and hopefully correct me as I go.
Good try, though.
So it's like a semi bigger deal, but it's a lot different forms, a lot more involvement. You know, now I'm being paid by my business versus my business itself being a part of me. Now I'm a part of my business. So that's a lot of changes, a lot of things that happen. And so in the midst of that previous employer, again, kind of all things went kaput in the midst of all those changes. And so Ket stepped up and was like, hey, after many a bugging message, I need help. I don't know what to do. I tried to look for a couple other CPAs, and they didn't know our world. They didn't know the creative, small handmade world. They didn't understand it. Barely anyone that I was contacting that was local was like willing to try and figure out external state stuff. And like all my stuff is essentially external. It was a whole thing. And so you helped me put those pieces back together, and you have been my accountant essentially full time ever since. And so that was pretty awesome for you to just be willing to do that. But anyway, so that's the story of of how I know Ket. And actually, Ket was doing our taxes for that previous employer the year before things kind of went kaput. So we had a prior understanding of I guess our
it was kind of natural to just
working.
Natural to just slide in back with each other. So.
Yeah. So, and again, like I said, the reason I wanted you have you on, because I know that there's like a level of authenticity for all this. But really, I think that this whole subject is so hard for a lot of people to talk about, because it's hard to trust the information you're getting from whatever source it is you're getting if you're not paying for it.
Please don't trust TikTok. If anyone listening gets anything from this podcast, please do not blindly trust TikTok. I have fixed so many TikTok mistakes from this advice they give. Like, there's one going around about big cars over 6,000 pounds and how you can write them off. You can't. There's a bunch of TikTok
like
stuff. Like
life insurance stuff I think I've seen before too. And but also, and like there are so many people that ask these general questions in like Facebook groups and stuff like that, and people will answer, and you'll read through 20 comments and only maybe one or two of them match each other. So it's like, which comment is the OP actually listening to and reading and implementing, and is it correct or not? So it's got to be anyway. I was always really skeptical about that, and I actually did find your previous employer through Facebook, and it worked out. It was great. But I also paid for every single service, you know, and I think that it's a worthy, if you had one investment to make in your business, to me, it would be get a heat press if you're sewing, and two, get yourself legit and freaking pay for it. You know, because it's really gonna reflect on both of you at that point.
Well, and it's gonna save you so much time and money down the line with penalties, with amendments, with fines. Like, do it right the first time, even if you only do it one time, so that you see the flow of it, and don't just go in blindly putting numbers places, because it does have repercussions down the line. Yeah, and try to understand at least how some of it works. You know, try to get to
like you had said before, demystify it to the point of like just allow yourself to be able to wrap your head around it, because not only will that help you when you're talking to your tax professional, so that when they're talking to you can maybe hopefully kind of comprehend half of it, but also so that like that will inform your future purchases and investments and your spending habits and things like that, which if you have a business, you should be thinking about that. Like, should I have bought $5,000 worth of inventory this year if I have $4,000 of that inventory still sitting untouched, barely even put away in my room? Like, there's, not that we don't do that, but, just maybe think about things like that. But again, there's a lot of misinformation and there's a lot of fear. And I think that with that fear comes avoidance. And a lot of people find themselves in the position like I was before I quote unquote got legit, which was that I avoided it because I was like, it's probably fine. It's not that big of a deal. And then you kind of learn that like, it's really not that big of a deal if you do it correctly.
Right. If you mess it up though, it can turn into a mess.
If you ignore it, it is a big deal.
Yeah.
So anyway, all of that to say, I think that this can be a really informative episode. I've been so excited for it. I asked you right at the beginning. I was like very tickled, and I'm such a nerd because I love knowing what I don't know for the most part. And it's okay if I don't fully understand those things, but I love being exposed to things like that. And so hopefully we can do that for other people.
I love talking shop, so it works. I'm happy to teach. I love teaching. I actually was almost a teacher growing up. That was one of the teacher or vet was the choices back then. Accountant was never in that list, but somehow it snuck up on me. So yeah, I'm happy to teach. I'm happy to explain. Like, I love these kind of chats because I get to share my knowledge.
Absolutely. And so I want to put this out there for all the listeners or the watchers that I'm going to have Ket put a nice big old disclaimer out there before we go forward with any information, because while she can give me tax advice, I pay for that. I pay for her to tell me all the things that I should and should not be doing. You are not paying for that. You did not enter into any contract or anything like that. So I want her to put this disclaimer out there. This is information that you can check. You can fact check all those things, but I don't want anyone coming after me or Ket in any capacity.
Yep. So, this is only educational material. I am not your accountant. Well, except for Shannon. I'm not the listener's accountant. I am not giving this information as gospel necessarily. This is my experience. I do say that if anyone listening notices something wrong, or if I, state something wrong, please call me out on it, because tax code is always changing. It literally got rehauled completely in July. So things change quick. So if anyone catches me on something incorrect, please, please, please let me know so I can fix it in my brain so that I can fix it for the clients too, because it's easy to get caught up in all the tax law changes. But I'm not a lawyer. I'm not your accountant. Educational use only. Blah, blah, blah. Please don't sue us.
Thank you. Thank you. And, that's one thing I really appreciate about you, is that you're willing to say, like, I may need to look this up. I don't have the answer right now. I need to look it up. And I don't hold anyone accountable for something like that. I really just would like you to be able to translate what the information out there is into what it means for me. Like, that's the big goal, because we can all find the same information. It's just making sure that you're interpreting it correctly. And I don't expect you to store all that information in your noggin. I expect you to just be able to use your resources efficiently, essentially.
I know where to look.
Exactly.
Is the thing, right? I know
finding the answer.
Where to go find it. Yep.
Okay, so we're going to jump right into it. Okay. And so the first one is the EIN. This one, I believe, coincides with one of the listener questions, which we normally get to at the end, but there were two that I kind of are popping into the middle of the episode, which is it the same as a tax ID?
Kind of. So an EIN is an employer identification number. This is a number that the IRS assigns you so that if you employ people, you can remit your withholding that you take out of their paychecks, right? The tax is there. But you do not have to have employees to have an EIN. It's not required. The good thing about an EIN is, first off, it's free. Do not ever, 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 ever pay for an EIN. Ever. IRS.gov, type in EIN in the search bar. It's free. It takes 10 minutes. You get your number immediately, unless there's some weird thing that pops up. Um,
Because if you
text,
Google it,
if
you
you
will
Google
get
it, you will pay. Yep. You will
you
find
will
a
pay.
ton of services that, oh, we'll get you your EIN and your business paperwork, but you can do it yourself. It's very straightforward, very simple, very quick and free. So always get your EIN on irs.gov, nowhere else, and do not pay for it. The difference between an EIN and a taxpayer identification number, which is what I believe the listener had a question about, your social or your ITIN, your I don't remember what it stands for, individual tax identification number, I think. Those are your taxpayer numbers. Those are your personal, it links to a person. An EIN links to a business, basically. So it's like a social security number for a business. Um, Even if you're not going to do much with your business, you can get the EIN because, again, it's free and it masks your social security number. So if you
Mm-hmm.
have to like give any vendors any information about your business or anything, you will use that EIN instead of your social. So that keeps it a little more secure. And it does look a little more professional. You will be taken a little bit more seriously if you go to someone with an EIN versus being like, oh, here's my social. So
Mm-hmm.
it just kind of smooths things out, totally free, no downside, really.
Right.
Mhm.
And that will kind of lead us into number 2 on my
Mhm.
list, which is sole prop versus LLC versus S corp. So the EIN essentially you're gonna need for, or you
All of
should
them.
have for all of them.
Hmm.
So it doesn't matter what level of business you have. It just makes sense to have the EIN.
Hmm.
Um, and so can we talk a little bit about sole prop versus LLC versus S corp?
Absolutely. So a sole prop is your default. This is a person who starts selling things on Etsy, doesn't file any weird paperwork, literally just starts selling and boom, there's a business. That's a sole prop. It is indistinguishable from you as a person. So when you're a sole prop, you have a Form Schedule C that is attached to your personal tax return, and that's it. There's no separate business return. There's nothing that the business has to do. It just goes all on your personal. Everyone is a sole prop by default. There is no
Mm-hmm.
registration required at the federal level. There's no business license at the federal level. You can get your EIN, and states have individual state registrations that you may or may not have to get depending on the state
Right.
because
Because
all
all
the
the
different
states
states
are,
have all different rules.
yeah.
And oh my gosh, it gets overwhelming sometimes. But most states will have something called a resale license or a resale certificate or a vendor's license or something like that, and that allows you to collect state sales tax,
Right.
which is essential for product-based businesses at least. I'm going to skip LLC for right now because it is a little bit different. So we have sole prop, and then we have what we call entities. And
Oh yeah, I
entities
forgot
are your
about that.
partnerships and your S corps. Partnerships and S corps are complex. They are for larger businesses, usually that have some sort of payroll. They are for people who are making enough money that I think I want to say usually I look for like 30 to 40 grand in profit, like pure profit, before I even suggest an S corp, because they're making enough money that the tax benefits of an S corp cancel out the tax benefits of a sole prop. So it's a
Mm-hmm.
better deal.
Yeah.
S corps are usually a couple years in. I know yours was 2 or 3 years in, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Usually
Yeah,
when you
once I
have
started
a
the
good
pattern business, it
following.
kind of
Hmm.
it went a little too fast, but then it was like at that point, um, it was only a year and a half into doing the pattern business that I
Hmm.
had to make the transition, and then I've been kind of what I feel like is at the cusp of really being eligible or it being a smart move to do S
Hmm.
corp or not, and so
Yeah.
that's where I'm at now.
One of the biggest roadblocks with S corp is the reasonable compensation, which I know you know, but just to fill everyone else in, one of the requirements to get these tax benefits of an S corp, like I said, is that you have to pay the owner reasonable compensation. They have to get a paycheck, like a W-2 traditional style paycheck. They can't take draws. I mean, they can, but it can't be only draws. And that tends to be the biggest roadblock for a lot of people because that's 20, 30, 40, 50, however much you want to pay yourself, right? That is
Yeah.
now something that has to be paid regularly. So
And not
that's
spent
one of the biggest
otherwise.
blocks.
Yeah.
And it has to be
So,
somewhat consistent.
yeah. So for me, so for most of our listeners, most of them are probably going to be in the sole prop world. You are just your normal small business maker. You can track your purchases. You can track it's just you making stuff out of your room, and you're not selling like hundreds and hundreds of thousands of dollars worth of product on any given year. For me, there was a couple reasons why it made a lot of sense, because I was already going to have to pay for accounting. I was already paying out the wazoo and federal taxes for the business, because nothing was being held back to really compensate for the income that was coming in. And then I got penalized for that. And so, like I said, I was at the monetary amount of it being the smart move. And then income went down, and now I feel like I don't know if I'm on the cusp or not, but I'm already doing it. I'm already paying for accounting and all the other stuff. And so my paycheck that I get is really low. But honestly, we don't have a great idea of like the exact amount that I need to be paid on a biweekly basis to make it make sense. It's kind of like we eyeball it, we figure it out, we compensate when needed. I can take a bonus and things like that.
But that's really the fault of the IRS, because they do not define reasonable compensation. They tell you you have to have reasonable compensation as an S corp owner, but they never define it. So is that 20 grand? Is that 200 grand? Like it can be flexible with your business.
Yeah. And you need to be able to track your income and all those things enough so that you're never going to go short of payroll, and you're not going to have to play catch up with numbers at some point, and stuff's being automatically taken out, like it is very complex now. And I am glad that I don't have to do it. I do what I'm told most of the time, and sometimes I don't, but then I get in trouble, and then I have to do it, and it's fine. I just know that I'm not the professional in the room when it comes to taxes. I'm just the one that's bringing in the money and spending the money, and that's the only thing that I do, essentially.
If it makes you feel better, I have no idea how to sew.
That's fair. That's fair.
I would love to learn, but I have no idea.
You said that you sold clothes. So you had your own small business that did pretty well for itself over the course of the years that you had it, correct?
Yeah, that's how I got into accounting, actually, is I had a small business importing, not making, importing kids' clothes. And that went on for about 8 years. And we got pretty good. I think our largest year was about $750,000, so about 750,000 for the year, which was pretty good for me. And
I mean, I would take it.
Right? Yeah,
I'm okay with that. Thank you.
But I got my accountant for that business, who was my previous employer, and she kind of took me under her wing and taught me stuff. So that's how I got into accounting to begin with, is through having a small business. So I feel like it puts me in this kind of unique position of understanding both sides, right?
Yeah.
The business owner and the tax pro. So it works better to be able to relate things. That can be like, okay, how would I have understood that a couple years ago, like with my business? And then I try to relate that to the client. So, but no, I never made anything.
Well, you would still at least, kind of know, I don't know, it's actually probably a very, very different world than sewing, for sure. But even though you don't sew, I have enough of an understanding of the intricacies of sewing and of how the things that I purchase correlate on a tax thought process sort of thing, like what this means, what the type of purchase this is, to be able to translate it to you. But there are definitely things that I have to educate you on my side of this world about too. I did jokingly tell I do this monthly live on YouTube, and it was after our meeting in early December, and you had mentioned, you could just bang out a couple patterns in like a month, and I was like,
oh, yeah. I felt so stupid after saying that, because I knew right after I said it, I was like, this isn't how it works. And then you were like, no, they take me months. And I'm like, I'm so sorry.
No, it's okay. It's okay. It was funny though, because I actually had an interview with so it would have been, I don't remember exactly when it was, but it was close enough to the recording with my good friend Nikki, who was on the show, and her question for me at the end was, how long do patterns take you? And I was like, I know, because I just talked about this with my tax lady. But no, it's great to be able to have that comfort level too with your accountant, that you can be like, but then, you retain it too, and you can understand it on a small business level. So many, I think it's like, if you had a niche, working within this specific niche of like, I don't want to say typically women, but I'm going to say typically small businesses.
I have one male client.
Good for you.
One.
Good for you.
Out of 120.
Good for you.
So yeah, mostly female, mostly crafter, mostly stay-at-home mom is a big part of it, and military is a big part of my client base, because you guys move around so much that it's hard for you guys to hold like a traditional job. So
yeah,
I have a lot of military people. Yep.
Yeah, and so it is nice to have someone who understands that, because when I was CPA shopping, after kind of figuring out what I was going to do from the previous employer to you, and in between those two, I talked to like 3 different ones. One was too big of a firm. Like they were, there's no way in hell I could have afforded that.
Yep.
And then the other one was a guy who, he was so wonderful. But he had no idea like about any kind of business similar to mine whatsoever. But he was so like, I would call up and he would be like on his lunch break, and he'd put me on speakerphone, and it was like, I just know this man has this big wooden desk like stacked with papers. He's got a Rolodex or whatever those things are called, Anyway, that's a tangent. But it's really nice to have someone who knows kind of, that can suggest to you, hey, maybe it's time for you to go to sole prop because your business, you can kind of understand the industry that person is working in, and also understand a lot of the goals that many people like us find ourselves wanting to achieve in this little journey of making a small business as a stay-at-home mom.
Yeah, and that's the gap I kind of want to target is, like you said, the one firm was too big for you. The other one sounds
too
like
small.
it was too small. Yeah, and I want to be that in between that people can come to, even just for advice.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. It is nice. And so if you're someone who can't afford a full-time accountant, though, there are plenty of people like Ket. Please go to Ket. But if you don't go to Ket, there are plenty who you can pay by the hour, and you can just say, I would like to have a conversation with you for an hour, 2 hours, and I need this targeted kind of conversation to help my mind understand what I need to do next. And there are plenty of people that offer that.
Yeah, and sure. I have consultations too.
Yes,
so
that's
I
the word I was looking for.
I actually do offer a 30-minute free consultation for anyone who just wants to pick my brain for half an hour. So
I have to imagine, though, at this point in the year,
there's still spots.
Okay, all right. I just wanted to disclaimer that in case maybe there wasn't any,
Right. But if people do need help with 2025, especially, and they don't want to be late, like reach out.
Right.
If anything, we'll file an extension and get to it in the summer if we have to.
Right, because a lot of the good. What is your title exactly?
I just go with accountant.
Accountant.
I don't have fancy letters yet, so
okay.
And the IRS doesn't actually certify tax pros unless you get what's called an EA, which is basically a tax court lawyer designation. So
that sounds
before that, if you don't want to go through that rigmarole, like they don't give any sort of certification. So everyone's like, "Oh, are you a CPA?" I'm like, "No."
Don't let that deter you, people. Ket is amazing.
There's nothing there. I would absolutely get the letters if I could.
Okay, so to jump into the next part, it's sales tax versus Nexus. Now these kind of coincide with one another, but there's like big picture stuff about Nexus that I want to kind of just like if you have achieved these two things, or at least this thing, or potentially this other thing in this state, you have nexus, right? And then at that point, we can jump into the sales tax. So I kind of
Sure.
want to start with nexus, if that makes sense to do.
If possible, I actually want to go back to the LLC thing.
Oh,
I didn't
sorry, I
address
forgot.
that,
I
and
jumped
that's
ahead.
actually something that gets messed up a lot. So,
absolutely, and I forgot entirely about
no, you're good. So LLCs are paperwork through the state. It is a state level designation for your business that puts a wall between your personal assets and your business assets. So if you make, say, kids' clothes and some child chokes on a button or something and the mom sues you, your business assets would be part of the lawsuit, but theoretically, if you do it right, your personal assets would be left off it. They wouldn't be able to get anything from it. This only works if you have a very clear line between your business assets and your personal assets. So no mixing of funds, no buying business stuff from the personal checking account, no using personal credit card. It needs to be clearly separated for the LLC thing to actually do what it is intended to do. There are also two types of LLCs. You can have a single member, which is just one person, or you can have multi-member. This is probably the number one business startup issue that I see is a lot of times husband and wives will file for a multi-member LLC, but that automatically bumps you to a partnership return federally. And the partnership return is one of the most complex tax returns out there. It requires a lot of accounting, a lot of basis tracking, which is Greek, but it's complex. Just a lot of stuff to get it to be correct. So a single person LLC with only one name on the LLC paperwork is a sole prop for federal purposes, which is just that Schedule C on the personal tax return. Super easy. Multiple people on it is much, much, much more complex.
So avoid it if you can.
If you get an LLC, either make it a single member with one name on it or be ready to put in a lot of work to make the multi-member thing work.
And do you have to have an LLC? I know
You do
that
not.
This is a common misconception.
Mm-hmm. I'm going to start this off with another disclaimer.
Okay.
LLCs are legal filings. They are technically lawyer territory, so I can't tell anyone to get an LLC or not. I can say that LLCs are meant to be protection against high litigation niches. So again, children's clothes, buttons, snaps, that sort of thing. Food. If you do anything with food, there's a chance of food poisoning, right? Anything that could be sharp or hurt people or anything that could come out of a lawsuit. So LLCs are good. Usually the states have a filing fee and you have to file just some typed out paperwork, just saying who's on it, what the goal, business plan, basically. And but if you don't keep it separate, if you don't keep that personal and business separate, it's going to do absolutely nothing for you.
But someone like me, so I didn't need to have an LLC until I switched over to S-Corp because I needed to have that very clear, fully documented separation and the protection because I just kind of leveled up my tax game into some unfortunately complex territory. But I know that a lot of people are like, you got to get an LLC, you got to pay buku money for it, you got to do this, you got to do that.
And I will say that getting an LLC does not make you legit. And there's a lot of misunderstandings that you don't start a business until you get that LLC, and that's not true. Your business starts the moment you have intention to make profit.
Yeah.
So the moment you sell something to a stranger, the moment you open an Etsy, the moment you open a Shopify, if there is any profit or any intention to make profit, you're a business.
So that is something that a lot of people say, like, well, I don't make enough money, or it's just a hobby and I sell occasionally. I obviously don't know all the intricacies, but what I had learned pretty early on is like if you keep intention in mind with taxes, you typically are going to hopefully lead yourself down the correct path. But if you go in there with the intention of with bad intentions of saying, well, I'm not really doing this, or it's not enough yet, or, or trying to hide or excuse something away, it's probably going to catch up with you. Maybe not in a great way, but That was just something that I had learned really early on. Like, just try your best just to be freaking honest, and you won't.
Yep.
Yeah, I'm not saying you won't get audited, but you're going to set yourself up for success
Yeah.
if you just so happen to be audited.
And the IRS isn't there to make your life hell, right? There's this big misconception that the IRS is this big, scary entity. They're going to come knock your door down. You're going to go to jail. And it's like, no, they send you like 8 letters. They fine you a bunch of money. There's a lot of paperwork, a lot of phone calls, but they're not, unless you're really, really, really deep in the trenches, they're not going to come arrest you, right? So
Right.
a lot of people will bury their heads in the sand when it comes to the IRS because they don't know how to deal with them or don't want to deal with them. And that's the worst thing you can do.
Yeah. Yeah. It's because you're going to have to deal with it eventually. You can't just ignore it away forever. And the further away you are from the point of which you should have been tracking or you should have been doing things, and all, the more complicated it gets, the more your fees are going to be. Because as we know, well, we know, but other people don't know, is that there are some things that have fees that end up having a daily significant amount, like $100, $200 a day, or some crazy
It adds
bananas
up
number.
really, really quick, and it adds
Yeah.
up quietly. They don't
Yeah.
send you daily statement emails, right? They
No.
send you a letter every month or two that says, "Oh, hey, you owe us another 3,000. Oh, hey, you owe us another 3,000." And it's like, where did this come from?
Yeah.
So staying on top of stuff will save money in the long run for sure.
Right. So are we safe to move on to the nexus part of things?
Oh, yeah. One quick thing is with filing the business, the intention to make profit is the rule, but technically the IRS does allow up to $400 in self-employment income before you have to file it.
So, for those who may not be listening, as of January 2026, please be aware that that is what they say as of January 2026. But we all know that shit changes.
Yep, it will probably
frequently.
change. But in general, any sort of self-employment income, if it's over $400, you are legally required to file it, whether there's profit or not. It's 400 in revenue. So, yep.
Well, it's good to know.
Yay.
Can we maybe talk a little bit more about transitioning from a hobby to a business? I know
Absolutely.
that, like, I didn't have that on the list, but since you brought it up, it should have been on the list, and honestly, probably should have been number 1 on the list. And that, like, obviously, you're saying that with the intention is there, but does that change? That's just like from a federal standpoint, but and I know that there are some changes state to state too, as far as like things like that, right? And obviously you can't go into all 50 states that, or
right. I've been focusing more on federal because it's what most people are worried about.
Because as we know, state to state is crazy different.
Right. Okay. So hobby versus business. So when I think of a hobby, I think of grandma knitting scarves for a plate of cookies at church or as a gift or something like that, right? There's no money. She doesn't even care about making back the material costs. It's just something she does for fun, gives away, maybe makes a couple bucks here and there. When you get to the point where you're selling to strangers, Etsy, Shopify, craft shows, or you are selling to recoup more of just cost of materials, that's when you move into that business territory. And that's where that intent to profit comes, is because you're selling to strangers with the intent to make money. You're not just giving it to Sam who sits down the pew from you. So that is a big thing. And the IRS does actually do what they call hobby audits. And this is where if you have enough losses in a row, year after year, they might come to you and say, hey, are you a business? Like, where's your intent to profit? Do you have business cards? Do you have a business account? Do you have sales tax? Like, they'll go through this big kind of checklist of things. And the reason that's important is because if they figure out or determine that you are a hobby, you cannot deduct expenses.
Ooh.
So hobbies have to report the income, but they don't use a Schedule C. They cannot deduct expenses.
So can that happen like mid-tax time? And so like you're screwed for the whole prior year if you do what I do, which is spend a bunch of money at the end of the year.
Yeah, if the losses every year is not the only thing that triggers it. So if you have a couple years of losses, that's expected, especially at the beginning or during like COVID times. There were a lot of losses, more, it was like 60-something% more than usual. But that's just one of the criteria. So I don't know the actual calculations or like what they actually go through, but I do know that there's a big list, and it's, things like how to prove that you're a business versus a hobby so that you can deduct those expenses, which
Yeah.
then lowers your taxable income, which then lowers your tax due.
Right.
So that is super important. So if you ever get any sort of letter from the IRS saying, we're getting you for a hobby audit or we need proof of your business or something, take it seriously, because you could miss out on a lot of those deductions and then suddenly you owe tax on all
Yeah.
that money.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it can be retroactive up to 7 years.
Whoa.
Mm-hmm.
Yikes. Because I just think about all the, equipment and supplies and things like that. New fear unlocked. Love that for me.
Yep.
I think I'm fine, but
I hope you're
again,
fine.
new
Your
fear.
accountant's pretty good, so I'm hoping she's on top of it.
I know, right? I mean, let's hope so. We can hope.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So I think most people probably, I think if you're probably doubting whether or not you're a hobby or a business, you're probably in the business category.
Yeah, most of the time, if you have any sort of selling channels, like I said, Etsy, Shopify, craft shows, that is just assume you're a business if you're selling like that.
You got access to strangers who wouldn't have found you if you weren't selling stuff,
Yep,
maybe.
Exactly.
Fair. Okay, so that does help lead us into, I think, the nexus part of things. And so my simpleton understanding of nexus is that if you're physically in a state, okay, you should explain generically, like in the most general of terms, what nexus is, and then I'll put it in my simpleton terms of what it means, maybe, and we'll see if I understand well enough.
So nexus is when you are required to collect sales tax for states. If you're selling online and you're shipping everywhere, there is an out-of-state, they call it economic nexus. And each state has its own threshold. Usually it is either 200 sales or like 100,000, I think is the average. So if you have more than 200 sales in that state or over $100,000 in revenue from that state, you have to register and collect sales tax for that state.
Yes.
Now, if you are on Etsy, Amazon, I'm not sure who else does it. If you're on something called a marketplace facilitator.
So Shop Pay is one.
Shop Pay is one. Shopify itself is not, though. Not yet.
Correct.
They're working on it. But like Etsy and Amazon and Shop Pay, they will collect and remit those taxes for you. But if you are doing craft shows, if you have your own website, if you have Shopify, the regular Shopify, if you're on, any sort of independent selling, you're going to be responsible for those.
Right.
There's two types of nexuses. One is physical, and that is where your feet are. You automatically have to collect sales tax for where you live, which, so I'm in Ohio, so I would have to collect sales tax in Ohio from day one. And then economic, which is that threshold.
Right.
So you're going to have two different types. And once you pass that threshold, you are required to continue collecting and remitting indefinitely until the business closes. So it's not a year by year thing. So it can get behind really fast, actually, when you don't know that you need to file them.
Yes. And some websites are really good about it. I mean, I have to imagine. You know what? That was a false statement because I only know that Shopify is good about it. So, but Shopify tells me when essentially it tracked how many orders I'm receiving from this state and that state, and it tends to update itself pretty well as far as the changing rules for things like digital content and things like that, for achieving nexus in that state. And so the way that I told myself was like, okay, well, if I gotta keep track of how many orders I have either shipped out or had in that state, and if I've hit that number, boom, I have nexus. If I haven't hit that number, I have not hit nexus. I don't have to worry about it. They don't get charged sales tax. Or if I'm physically selling in that state, or located in that state. And so for me, I actually I didn't say this before for the LLC thing. So I'm in Texas, but my LLC is registered in Delaware. Well, Delaware doesn't have sales tax, so easy money, right? I don't have to really worry about charging sales tax for that. I'm from Delaware, so it's easy. But I have to have an out-of-state LLC in Texas, but I'm physically here, so I have to charge sales tax in Texas. I've also achieved Nexus and at 4 other states, in 4 other states,
I know
which,
at least 3 off the top of my head. So yeah, you've hit a couple of them.
yeah, and I think it's Ohio, Michigan, Georgia,
Ohio, Michigan, Georgia, and Texas.
and I feel like it's Illinois. I think there's one more.
Probably. They're one of the lower ones.
Yeah, so some states have a number of orders. So if you're someone like me who does small transactions of digital items, you can get screwed because over the course of the year, if I've sold 200 $4 Tuesday tote patterns, or 100 of them are the $3 add-ons for one of my patterns, then that contributes to that number. And so once I have processed that many transactions, if that state, it counts for digital products. Like, I have hit the nexus. It's fun. I think I've been on the cusp for Illinois for the last year, and I don't think I've achieved it yet. Because it's a rolling 12-month thing, right? It's not a
It's
calendar
based on the
year.
prior 12 months of sales data. So I actually had one client who hit Ohio's Nexus December 29th. And I cried. I was like, I have to do all this because it was biannually, so we had to file all the way from July. So like, it was a big mess, but whatever.
Yeah, one of those. So before I hired you on for the accounting full time, I tried to keep up with it on my own. And this was in the midst of like me shopping for a different accountant, trying to figure out and not hearing back from the prior accountant. And there's two things when it comes to sales taxes that matter if you have to charge sales tax. And this is where people's brains, it's going to go into a little bit of the white noise. They're going to shut us off, and that's okay. But it's the origin, right? Or the whatever.
Origin or destination.
Right. So one is, I'm going to charge you sales tax based off of where I'm at. And the other is, I'm going to charge you sales tax based off of where you're at.
Destination. Yep. So for example, Ohio does destination based. So I just did your Ohio sales tax, so this is fresh in my mind. But for the things you sell to Ohio, you don't collect the Texas percentage. You collect wherever the buyer is, the shipping address is. So if it's a county in Ohio with 5%, well, that sale is 5%. If it's a county in Ohio with 7%, that sale is 7%. So it gets
Ohio is
really
evil. I would just
complicated.
Like that to be said.
Oh gosh, Ohio's the worst.
Because I tried to do that on my own, and I had to look up all the freaking counties that I sold to, and then look up their sales tax, and then calculate all of that stuff, because it was so hard to like do the formula, because all the numbers are different. It'd be like less than 5% here, and maybe I don't remember all the numbers, but it was so complicated. And by the end of it, I was like, this was not worth the amount of hours it took me to do. Like, my hourly wage I would have been fine. I could have paid for you all month for that amount of hours it took me. Crazy.
In Ohio, not sales tax, but on the income tax side, Ohio has this thing called RETA, which is the regional taxes. And the counties that participate in RETA change every year.
That is... Ohio is evil.
Ohio is evil.
Not for lovers.
I agree. I live here, and it's still evil to me. So, yeah.
Not for lovers of taxes.
Yep.
Okay. And so for sales tax, I have a thing that I would like to be said. Can you charge sales tax without having a sales tax license?
Ooh. Technically, no, but a lot of people do. And there is this gray area with the Nexus thing, because if you hit Nexus, like my one client hit the Nexus December 29th or whatever, but because her filing frequency was twice a year, we had to go all the way back to July. So technically, she would have been at that time collecting those taxes without a registration, because we didn't register until December, but it's implied that we're just backtracking. Every state, I want to say every state has that vendor's license or that sales tax ID, Usually they're free, or less than $20 sometimes. Most of the time you can do it online without a problem, and that also allows your purchases to be tax-free. So your goods that you're buying to resell or to create into something. So if you buy fabric for a dress for a customer, that fabric can be purchased tax-free if you have that sales tax number through the state, because you're not the end user. You're not
Yeah.
the final
Somebody's going to pay
destination.
for it.
Yep. So the customer should be paying you the tax. You shouldn't be paying tax on the materials,
Right.
if that makes sense.
And is that only limited to purchasing in the state, or can it be for paying sales tax across the US if you order something online?
No, it should be fully exempt if it's online. A lot of places like Amazon and stuff will have customer service. You'll submit your seller's license from the state, and then they'll mark you as tax exempt. A lot of vendors do the same thing. In-person places have been hit or miss for me. Like I've gone to Office Depot and been like, here's my sales tax license. And they're like, what do we do with this? But then I've also gone to Staples and they were just like, okay, no tax. So your mileage may vary. But in general, almost every retail business should be able to mark you as tax exempt somehow. So you're not paying basically double taxes on that
Right.
item.
And so this is for things that are going to go out of your door, not the things that are going to stay like in our selling room. So that wouldn't really be something that I could allow myself to not pay taxes on for the machine, for the sewing
Right.
machine.
This is for things that are eventually going to the customer.
Right. That they're going to pay for.
Products that you are selling.
Right. Yeah. So Nexus is one of those things, and sales tax are one of those things where it can be pretty complicated if you end up achieving Nexus in more than one state. But for a lot of us who are in the sole prop state of life, and we have Nexus in the single state, and we have everything set up in one place, and we haven't achieved Nexus elsewhere, it can be pretty easy. And that whole like marketplace thing was a new thing over the last few years. Which is nice. And so like you still have to state what you made, right? But you only have a specific section that if it was sold on a marketplace and things you sold off the marketplace, you're only gonna pay the sales tax to the county or wherever, I guess, based off of what you haven't already done that for. So like Etsy takes care of that for me, and I don't have to do it twice. But there's a lot of misunderstanding of that happens, I'm sure, when it comes to marketplaces, because if you don't kind of know that big picture of like essentially if a customer pays a marketplace and that marketplace pays you that specific amount, then they're taking care of the sales tax. But if the customer is paying you directly for that product and there's no middleman in there, then
you're responsible for it.
Then you're responsible. Okay, I hear your puppies.
Yeah, he's good now.
No, so can we tell the listeners about your aminals?
Absolutely. So my house is very chaotic. It's gonna kind of be a tangent, but if you do end up doing taxes with me or being a client with me, you'll see it anyway. All my work is remote. I work from home. I have 4 kids. 3 of them are teenagers. I have 8 pets. 2 of them are 70-pound huskies. So if you're a dog lover, like come over,
I've seen them
to the family.
Before.
Yeah, I love to talk about them. I actually have a paint by number that my daughter got me of my female husky, who's mine, and I've been doing that. So like I'm obsessed with these dogs. So I've been trying to put them into some of the bookkeeping, like emails, and it's a little comedy bit, but yeah. So if you do end up having appointments with me, there's probably going to be kids, there's probably going to be pets in the background. I always say come in your PJs, because like it's Zoom. Everything I do is remote. Everything is through Zoom. So I don't care if you have kids running around. I don't care if you have pets running around. I don't care if you have to get up 6 times to answer the door. Like,
right.
Life is hectic enough without having to be trapped in some stuffy office for 3 hours while someone
somebody makes you do what I'm making you do right now.
Right, about taxes. Yeah, great. This was voluntary though.
Yes, kind of.
But yeah, we have a lot of fun here. We keep it real for sure.
Yeah, no, I think that you allow for a very comfortable experience, because like I said before, so much of this is fear.
Mhm.
There's the fear involved of like not doing it correctly, which is my big number one fear because I don't understand all the jargon or the words like which address do I put in here? My registered agent's address or my address? Which one do
Mhm.
I do? You know, like I'm terrified. I doubt myself constantly. So to have a safe space in which there are no dumb questions, you know,
Mhm.
things like that. It's really nice for sure. Um,
Yeah, and that's kind of my philosophy. Like, if I need to explain something to someone 6 times, I will. If I need to reword it 6 times, I will. I want you to know what you're signing. That's kind of
yes.
like my core principle, right? Is I want you to have the communication and the knowledge to know when you sign your name on that tax form, because it is on penalty of perjury. Like, it is a binding signature saying that you believe everything on this form to be true. So it's a
Hmm.
big thing, and it can be legally defended if needed. And so I want to make sure that you know when you're signing what you are signing, because
Right.
so many preparers will just be like, here's your return, sign here, and they're
Hmm.
gone.
Yeah.
But I'm going to be here to answer questions, follow-ups. If you get a notice from the IRS, like I'm always kind of hiding in the corner, ready to come out. So that's
Yeah.
one of the really big pros about finding a small CPA versus like not CPA, a small accountant versus like a firm, because
Yeah.
you get that one-on-one. And
Yeah.
I've got a couple gals who work with me who are also great at, reaching out and explaining things. And I'm actually really excited for the season.
Yeah, I mean, that's awesome. Yeah, you said you had recently hired a couple extra people,
Hmm.
which I'm so happy for you. You know, that you're in that position to need that.
Hmm.
And I'm sure it takes a big burden off of you as far as like feeling like you have this mountain, you know, because
Well,
everyone also
m
panics.
mostly I just make them do the stuff I don't want to do.
Ooh,
So
love that
they
for
do the
you.
file maintenance and the, checking for organizers and all that sort of stuff. And I get to do
Love
the
that
fun
for
part.
you. Oh, so I'll be getting an email from somebody when I am
Probably.
behind on submitting the
Did you
things
ever
and
meet Kelly?
nope, you're the
No?
only
Okay.
one. I've been privy
She was
to the
she was
fancy
with
schmancy.
my old job for a while too,
Oh,
and
okay.
the same thing happened. So I took her on. So we're back in business again. So.
Love that. I
Hmm.
mean, that's great for you. I'm sure also comfortable because I know that you ended up taking on a good chunk of prior
Hmm.
clients as well, which is, you know, again, it's really nice to find people that know how to communicate with you and can understand the industry in which you're working within. Like the
Hmm.
one guy that I said was like maybe too small, like he was mainly dealing with like landscapers and like things
Hmm.
like that. Not a clue, not a
No.
remote clue. If I said a sewing pattern, he would have no idea what I meant.
Hmm.
Like he didn't have one customer or one client that sold anything out of state. And I'm like, well,
Oof.
you're not for me. That's 90% of my orders.
Yep.
Um,
And we're gonna go through some questions on what to ask an accountant later,
yes,
and that was actually
yes,
gonna be one of them: is do they know state sales taxes?
yes,
So.
because like so the different states that we had to do or that we had to process sales tax for me specifically. So Texas is quarterly.
Mhm.
Ohio is how often?
Ohio, I think, is twice a year.
One of them switched. One of them I was
One of
doing
them
monthly
switched.
and it
Yeah.
switched to biannual. But I think I was doing,
Yeah. Ohio's twice a year right now.
yeah, I was doing monthly, quarterly,
Hmm.
semi-annual, and then there was one more, and that was either also quarterly or also semi-annual. But like, I couldn't keep up with that. There's no way in hell I could do that on my own. No, I could barely do my quarterly ones, and I always submitted it like the day before it was due.
Hmm.
And I had to remember how to look it all up every single time. It was great. So absolutely, it is so nice to have somebody that is knowledgeable enough, and you have all the spreadsheets on your own. Like you have it set up to plug and play, unlike me, who has to remember how to export the various information every
Exactly.
so many months to
Yeah,
make it accurate.
because you guys should be focused on your business, not reports. Like,
That's
I
fair.
hate these creative small business owners who have all these ideas, all this energy, and they're so stressed out about taxes. And it's like, no, funnel that into your business
Hmm.
and make enough so that you can get help with the stuff you don't know.
Right.
Because that effort, like you said, you could have paid yourself, way
Hmm.
over what you would have paid me to do it in the beginning, and that's how you grow.
Right.
So.
Yeah. And
I hate
it's
feeling
an
stressed out.
expense. It's a business expense for me.
Yes, that
So
is
I get to write it
for
off.
everyone.
So,
Hmm.
yeah. So that leads into the next part, which is what is the bulk of what most of us small businesses and sole props have to handle on a normal basis. At least on a normal basis, you should be doing it. If you don't do it, it's a big headache at the end of the year, but you kind of have to do it if you want to do it correctly.
If you haven't done it, let me know. I do really good with catch-ups.
That's good. So I've gotten good at catch-ups because I do it every year.
Hmm.
So what we're getting at is essentially inventory tracking and purchasing tracking.
Oh
And
boy.
so there's three terms that I was taught, which is materials, supplies, and equipment.
Hmm.
And so if I'm gonna put it in dumb person terms for myself, right? Not that okay, I shouldn't have said that. Not
Not
nobody
dumb.
here's dumb.
English, not Greek.
Um, we're just putting it in simpleton terms for us. That's all. That's fine. But so materials are the things that the vinyl, the fabric, the hardware, the things that go out the door with the bag. The with the exception of things that are essentially immeasurable. So you can't measure your thread,
Thread. There was
right?
actually a tax court case on thread. So all thread has been legally declared as deductible. It's not
Love that.
inventory. It's all, it's all supplies.
Right. And something like double-sided tape, a lot of us
Hmm.
use a crap ton of that. We can't
Yep.
unroll it and put it back together and use that and claim that. So you buy double-sided tape. That double-sided tape is accounted for something that you use to make. So that's where we're differentiating materials from supplies, right? So if you can't measure it and you're using it as like a tool or something to make the product happen or to make the business happen, is a material. But once it gets into the expensive type of things like sewing machines, computers, things like that, then you get into the equipment.
Hmm.
And all of those things are different and how that they get kind of looked at the end of every year or for the business as a whole. And so I would like, now that I've put it in simpleton terms for some of us, not all of us, there are plenty of smart cookies out there. I am not one of them when it comes to taxes. I am terrified of them. But anywho, can you tell us more about how we can at least kind of wrap our head around how the cost of those things translate to our business, what it means for that?
Sure. So your inventory is your materials. Like you said, different word, same thing. These are things that will eventually go to the customer. So like you said, your fabric, your vinyl, if you do glassware, the glasses you're shipping out, anything, basically the thing that they order, right? If it goes into the thing that they order, it's inventory or materials. Same thing, different name. Supplies are what is used to help you create your items, but may not go to the customer. So, like you said, your double-sided tape, your glue, all thread because it can't be measured. If you have pattern pieces or
Like the
the
templates,
templates, if you print the huge templates and cut them out, like that expense would be a supply because it's not going to the customer, it's just your pattern. Um,
like
office
office equipment.
stuff,
Yeah. So
office stuff,
like
yep, paper, pens, folders,
lights,
planners, lights,
desks.
chargers, furniture. Furniture might be equipment depending on price, but in general, anything that is not going to the customer, but you still need it to run your business is likely going to be a supply. The difference between these two is that inventory is perpetual. It revolves year to year. So your first year in business, your inventory is always going to start at zero because you don't have anything yet. By the end of the year, the amount you have left will be the next year's starting inventory amount. So it carries over year after year. Supplies are all deducted in the year purchased. So they are a 1 year thing. You write off your office supplies and that's it. You just get that deduction. Equipment is a little different. Equipment tends to be things that are going to last for a long time, like your sewing machines, your heat presses, furniture, some software can be considered equipment, like digital files.
Mm-hmm.
And equipment is depreciated. And this means that instead of taking the full amount as a deduction in the first year or the year it was purchased, you take small chunks over 5 to 7 years, which is considered like the lifespan of the product.
Okay.
So if you buy a sewing machine, let's say it's $1,000, and That would be a 7-year life for that product. Well, we'll just say it's $700 just for simplicity.
Fair.
So
I was
then
going
you
to
would
say,
be
I want
right.
to see
That's
you
not
do
going to
this
go
math.
right.
Okay, let's see it.
So $700, 7-year product. So you would write off $100 per year until that value was basically used up. There is something called bonus depreciation that does allow you to write it off like supplies, where you can take the whole amount up front, but it can get really complicated. So check with your tax pro or really, really read into the IRS stuff before you opt into that, because it can have repercussions, especially if those items are no longer used for business.
Okay.
You might actually have to pay back some of that deduction. It's called recapture. It's a big, messy thing. It's way beyond the scope of this, but um, that's your big stuff, is your equipment. And they're all treated differently on the tax return. They're all kind of recorded differently. There's a lot of wiggle room between them, but the biggest thing is consistency. So in year one, if you write off your double-sided tape as a supply, in year two, don't go put it in inventory, right? Because it's not gonna line up quite right. Same with equipment. If you're writing off flash drives and mouses, and you've got all this little office equipment, and then suddenly there's a bunch of it on the depreciation schedule, it's going to be like, wait, what changed? So the biggest thing for inventory would be consistency. So whatever way you decide to do it, just keep doing it that way.
When it comes to materials, so a lot of people have heard me talk about the dreaded end of year inventory. And so at that point and at the end of the year, what I do is, so ideally you could print out all your receipts every month and put them into your spreadsheet and do all that stuff and track it as you go. And you can do all those things. I don't, because I could pull things out and enter in all the stuff in my inventory, and that back never gets made, and then things are completely off. And so what I do is I measure everything. I have some things that help me figure that out, right? So like if I do pull out a piece, I actually have because I'm doing it right now, I only have fabric and vinyl left, and I only have half of my fabric left. But what I'll do is I have this index card, and I will do my end of year. So every year you have to measure or count or do all that stuff for all of your all of the materials that you are using. So it could be rivets, but so I have to count every single rivet that I have, because it is something that can be counted, and I need to account for that. But so like what I showed with my fabric was that I have an index card, and so every year I can go through my piles and I will pull out the ones that have had the previous year highlighted, because I know that they've been highlighted. But as I go through my spreadsheet, which this year I was finally smart enough to add in a new column and input a cubby number so I can sort by cubby.
Smart.
And yeah, that was very helpful to where I can go through and I can go through my list and be like, oh, well, that fabric doesn't exist anymore. I must have used it all. So easy peasy, that's a 0 for that one, right? And so I zero it out. So there's a lot of things that you have to do when you're inputting inventory. Like you have to account for your shipping costs and for the sales tax that you paid for and things like that. And you have to measure every square inch of fabric, and you have to figure out the best way in which to measure things too. So there's a whole lot of information that is attached to the inventory tracking that's kind of hard to cover in just a short amount of time.
Yeah, I literally wrote a book about it.
You did?
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm still working on it.
Okay, I was going to say,
it was originally
plug away.
supposed to be for the previous employer, but I'll get there. But yeah, it's enough to fill a book. It's very complicated. And the big reason for the measuring at the end of the year is to get the value of what's left, because the way the IRS allows you to deduct your inventory costs is a calculation. And this is called the cost of goods sold calculation. And it's super annoying, but it's how they do it. But basically, they take what you started with, they subtract what you ended with, and that gives them what you sold in value. So if you start with $1,000 in inventory, you end with 500. Well, you've sold $500 worth.
Right.
And that's why we do the count at the end of the year, because we need to know what's left so that we can figure out what was sold.
Right.
You can do it the opposite way, where you literally write down everything you sell. If you only have a couple sales like a month or something, and that's easier, you can absolutely do that as long as you trust your own numbers.
Yeah, that's the
Now,
thing.
I am
Like,
ADHD. I get confused. I have, memory issues. I do not trust my own numbers. So
yeah.
for me, I always counted. But for other
Yep.
people, they might be able to stay on top of it.
Yep. I even would, there was a couple years where I would kind of trust myself as far as like going through all the shops I knew that I purchased from, going through printing out all the receipts and then putting them all in the inventory and be like, there's no way I bought any more than this. I'm fine. And then I start going through my inventory and I find things that I had purchased that year that I just completely forgot about. And so I think that taught me right then and there that, okay, we print out the bank statements and we cross off as we go to make sure everything is being accounted for. But it was really, I really enjoyed learning how to do the inventory and stuff. Once you understand how it works and like what you understand, so like your webbing, they're in yard form, so easy peasy, you can measure it by the inch, just put how many inches are left at the end of the year, boom, and if you do the calculations for, incorporating your sales tax and your shipping cost, then you know how much every inch costs you, and that's what those wonderful spreadsheets are for, to kind of help you plug and play. So for me, I just put in how many inches I have left of that particular webbing color, and I'm good to go. But the way that I just kind of tell people is like, you just need to know how much money you have sitting on the shelves, because that's it's part of your business, and so I don't know how correct that is, but that's what I say. It's good to know how much money they need to know. That they need to know how much it costs you to do that. I have a cubby of OSHA fabric that's worth $2,000, and I have a cubby of florals that's worth $300. Like, I need to know how many inches of the $2,000 cubby I've used versus the $300 cubby I've used. And I need to know if that is, because that makes a big impact on what I can write off at the end of the year. So it's important.
Speaking of writing off, one of the biggest mistakes I see as far as inventory is people putting the purchase amount in the inventory section. You don't want to do that. You're not allowed to deduct the full value of inventory until it's technically sold. So if you
Right.
put how much you purchased in there, you're claiming that deduction before you're allowed to, and it absolutely can come bite you in the butt later.
Right. So like I also like to think of it as like an investment. So like this is
It's actually considered an asset. So
yeah,
an
and I
investment.
was just getting ready to say it's like a physical asset that I have invested money into to make more money off of later. So they need to know how much of my investment I used up that year, how much of the assets left over. And so that really stinks. And that's why people are like, they maybe don't understand why it takes me so long to do it. Well, I don't know how many tabs on my spreadsheet. I've added filament in the last couple of years is a whole other thing. So for that one, I don't have to measure the inches. I can't do that with filament. I have to weigh it. That's how I buy it. In grams, I have to weigh it. In grams, I have to know how much the empty spool costs so I can get my calculations properly, done. It's crazy. But
once you do it the first year, though, usually you can find a groove.
it is.
Most people come back after the first year and they're like, oh, about halfway through, I got it. Like, I
Yeah.
understood what we were doing. And that's always rewarding.
Yes. To me, the hard part is the calculating of the sales tax and the shipping, because there's just no real easy way to do that other than, I mean, if you have a spreadsheet that does it for you, I don't. But I do it all.
Who will do it, though.
I do. But like, you already do a bunch of other stuff, so it's like, that's fine.
I wrote a software to do it. I have something that auto scans receipts and fills it into the spreadsheet.
I need it. I was good this year. I did not buy as much this year as I have in prior years. So I was like, dude, I am at the done of I got done my list, like going through all my calculations in like a day. And that includes finding and printing some receipts as well that day too. So I was pretty happy about it. Do you have a recommended spreadsheet for tracking inventory and purchases and things like that? I have a recommendation for what I use, and this was a listener question. Right? Yes. Yeah. Okay.
So there is a system out there called Paper and Spark. It's by Janet
LeBlanc,
to borrow something like that. Janet, she's awesome. I know her personally. She's been a good friend for years now. She's a spreadsheet wizard, And she is one of those people where if you buy it and you break it, or if you buy it and you don't understand, just email her and she will absolutely
Mm-hmm.
hold your hand through it.
Yeah.
So that is Paper and Spark. She has a lot of different spreadsheets. Some of them are for like Shopify and Etsy reports. Some of them are for inventory. Like she's really expanded lately.
Mm-hmm.
But it doesn't need to really be that complex either. Like you can have a notebook and you just have how much you bought and then you have how much is left and you go from there. So whatever works for you, but if you're going to go the spreadsheet route, she's who I would go with.
Yeah. The one thing that's really nice about the individual spreadsheets is that they are created to work with the exports from those various softwares. So you export the specific form or report from Etsy, and then you open it up in a different sheet, you copy everything and you paste it into that specific month of the Etsy spreadsheet, and it auto populates into the summary tab. And then you go and you hunt down the other numbers you need, and then you put them into the summary tab, and then at the end of the year all your numbers are there. It's wonderful.
It's a good system if you take the time to learn it. If
I
anyone
guess
does
that's
go
true.
buy the Paper and Spark system, take the time to sit down and go through her videos because she has a whole YouTube full of videos. They explain things really well. It's one of those things you have to kind of let it marinate a little bit before you get it, before it clicks. But once it clicks, it's usually pretty simple.
Yeah. I've been able to I'm not very good at Excel, but I have been able to figure out essentially to adapt some of the formulas myself so that I can make some changes, hide some columns so that I don't need them. And like I change the names, I change the whatever to make it perfectly suit my needs. And it works out really well. But the other really added benefit to something like the inventory spreadsheet is that it also includes a cost of goods made calculator. And so you could, if you find, okay, well, I used 3 rainbow rivets and I used 120 square inches of this custom fabric and I used, 2 yards of webbing and things like that, you can figure out exactly how much that bag cost you to make by plugging in those specific numbers. And you have all those numbers because that's part of what that spreadsheet does is you're putting, so an example of one of mine is like, okay, well, I bought this fabric, here's the name. This is how much I bought, so I would put in there. I'd do like yard or yards, and I'll put a parentheses of how many I bought or a half yard or whatever, and then I say how much I paid for it, which is all the extra fees and expenses calculated into it, and then how much I got for that purchase, how many square inches, right? And so it does the math. There's the next row or column is a formula that shows you what that per inch cost is. And then there's other information, date, business name, things like that. But then it also calculates how much you have left at the end of the year, which again translates to the big picture of the asset. But it's that per inch, that per increment, that measurement that is so valuable because like I can know how much it cost me to print something without having to rely on the Bamboo Lab calculation, right? I can know how much everything costs me on whatever the increment or the unit is that I'm using. And that's very beneficial if you're trying to figure out essentially what's the minimum you can charge for something without going bankrupt,
Negative.
essentially. Yeah. Anyway, this is my favorite part, which shows you how nerdy I am, that I love the spreadsheet part of it. Absolutely. I don't like physically pulling everything out and measuring it, but I love when it's all done at the end of the year. It makes me happy.
So do you know what comic book boards are?
Yeah.
Yeah, that works for fabric really well. If you wrap it around it and then like clip your note sheet onto it, I found that works really well because I saw yours was floppy and
Well,
thought I'd bring that up.
so my stacks fit really well, and I think the comic book boards, they typically go vertical, and I have too much to go vertical.
Oh, okay. See, I don't know the scope of it. So
no, that's fair.
Yeah,
that's fair. I have to go. I have to fold them and stack them vertical. Okay, so typically they are stacked, I guess, they're vertically, but they stack side to side. Mine have to be stacked on top of each other.
Gotcha.
So I have the IKEA boards. I'd love to tell everyone about how I do it. But essentially, I just fold them into 6-inch sections and then fold them in half so I can get 2 full stacks next to each other, and it works out really well.
Smart.
So yeah, I have to do this kind of method just because of the amount of like 1/2 and 1 yard cuts that I have for no reason.
I am going to cut in here really quick and just mention that you mentioned on the spreadsheet there is a cost of goods made tab. You're right, you're correct. But I want to differentiate that from cost of goods sold, which is the IRS calculation. So if you do go get Janet's spreadsheet, don't take that cost of goods made and think that's what goes on the tax return, because it doesn't.
Okay, fair.
They're very similar. People get confused all the time, but they're different calculations.
Okay. I was like, oh no, I already started the misinformation train. I'm sorry.
No, you're good. So far, so good.
Okay, so this again leads into the next question. What should we be doing at the end of the year? Obviously, I'm doing inventory. And so can we get like kind of big picture of stuff, what you should do before January 31st and what you should do, December 31st and what you should do January 1st?
So before the end of the year, you want to probably stop your inventory purchases with a good chunk of time before the end of the year, because if things show up on December 31st, even if it's a $14,000 China order, ask me how I know, they have to be included. They have to be counted. We had packages show up December 31st, 14 grand worth of stuff. We had to unpack it, count it, and it had to go in there. And it was a nightmare. I should have refused the delivery, but anything in your hands or in a fulfillment warehouse. So if you do fulfilled by Amazon and you have products in their warehouse, that is technically still inventory. So by the end of the year, if you don't want to really inflate that inventory number, stop buying your inventory earlier.
Stop buying fabric, people.
Stop. Right. I tell people Black Friday, go wild and then stop. That's like my personal, advice. If you do have profit, or if you think you're going to have profit, you can look into lowering that by equipment. So buying computers or furniture or things that, big purchases that maybe could still be written off, not like a building or something, but, the little stuff. And looking for any prepaid expenses that you can pay ahead of time. So if you have an Adobe subscription, pay for the whole year in December, and then that, what is it, like $800 now or something, is deductible in that year, even though it's for future dates. And that can be done up to 1 year in advance. So anything you can prepay for up to 1 year, like, do it. If you have software subscriptions, if you have, really that's the biggest one, I think, is all the software subscriptions.
Yeah.
But
yeah, Canva, Adobe, your Shopify plan, like lots of things like that. My Shopify plan always renews in February, but it's fine. My other ones renew in December on purpose.
Yep. I set everything to renew December 15th on my side, if I can.
That makes sense.
It makes a difference, especially if you only have a little bit of profit and you're afraid that you're going to owe taxes on it and you want to like put that closer to zero or even at a loss. Like, that is one legal strategy that you can employ. Right.
Because now you're taking that profit number down, which means you're going to be taxed on less things. But instead of having to just pay that money out to the government, you're investing that back into things that you can use. So it's really great.
Yeah. And same with like office supplies too. If you want to buy 4 reams of paper and it'll last you the year, cool. If you want to buy a 200 pack of pens, that sort of thing. The big blinking light with business deductions for the IRS is ordinary and reasonable. So is this purchase an ordinary thing for this business? This is my words, not the IRS's, but if you gathered 100 business owners who do exactly what you do, and you asked all of them, is this item important for this business? And over 50 of them say yes, that's a pretty good sign that it's going to be a good deduction. If one of them says yes and 99 of them say hell no, maybe don't use business funds to purchase that.
That's fair.
But
and
really,
speaking of purchasing, by the way, you had mentioned earlier about the LLC making sure that things are differentiated, right? You have your business money and you have your personal money. And so since we're speaking of buying shit, it would be great to just maybe reiterate, maybe
I'll shout it from the rooftops.
Yeah, keeping the finances
I have
separate.
seen deductions disallowed because of it. And I've
Wow.
seen things happen where they didn't keep it separate enough. It was too muddy, and the IRS said, we can't clear this up, so we're just not going to let you have the deduction.
Right. So if you
Even
have
out of
like
a
this
legal
debit
landscape.
card, and it's like it's your personal debit card, and you've decided that this is now what you're going to be buying all the business stuff with, great.
Mhm.
But you go out and you buy yourself gas that's unrelated to business, or you buy yourself
That's
dinner
when you
that's
get in trouble.
unrelated. That's when it becomes muddied, right?
Yeah, you're allowed to take a personal credit card and use it for business. Like you said, the issue comes is when you're mixing them, when you're mixing it on the same card. So if you have a credit card and you want to use it to fund your business, like by all means, but earmark it only for the business, right? Or
Yeah.
even better, go get another smaller line of credit only for the business.
Yeah.
Just keep as many walls as you can between the two different finances.
Yeah. So when I started, we designated a checking account specifically for the business. And I think I made maybe like 3 or 4 over the course of a few years, accidental purchases. I think there's one time I needed to pull cash out, and I only had that debit card, and I pulled cash out. I was terrified. It was like $40, and I was like, I'm breaking the law. But,
no, that's totally fine if it happens as an accident.
Right. It's the intention sort of thing, right?
It's the intention, and I mean, mistakes happen.
Yeah.
Like they're not going to audit you for a $40 ATM withdrawal, right? But
you
if it
couldn't have told
becomes
me
regular,
that at the time.
yeah, if it becomes regular, or if it becomes so mixed to the point where you literally cannot separate it, like especially if you're buying from big box stores. So like, was that Walmart trip, was that for shipping boxes, or was that for groceries, right?
Yeah.
That's where it gets really mixed up. So
right. I've done that
best
too.
advice
I
is
will just
always
check out
separate it.
twice. And that's what people should be doing, correct?
Yep.
Yeah, I last year got finally my own business credit card, and I was so excited because it's definitely really nice to feel completely separate, and also not afraid that my bank's going to be like, you're using this for business, so your account's canceled, because there are banks and cards that also don't want that to happen. So also make sure you read your fine print on your account, because I know that there are some, like I'm pretty sure USAA is one. That's where I had where you shouldn't be doing business stuff with it.
Right. And that applies to payment accounts too, like PayPal, Stripe, like any of the payment processor accounts. If you have friends and family payments coming through PayPal where there's no fees being taken out, and that is for business, that is technically against their terms of service, and they can shut down your account. So business accounts, separate finances, just put a wall between all of it.
I'm going to admit something. I'm probably going to, somebody somehow is going to get somewhere. But no, like when I pay some people, I try, if PayPal allows me to send them money through friends and family, that's what I will do, so that neither one of us have to pay, or only one of us has to pay the fee or whatever. And what I have been told by the previous tax lady was that essentially that's on PayPal to prevent that. Truly, it's on me to know what the hell I'm doing, but I could just play dumb. Prevent me from doing it in the future, fine. That's fine.
And it's different when you're like paying contractors or stuff versus customers paying you for product.
Oh yeah, no, it's all contractors.
Yeah,
like
you
when I pay my
don't want
testers and
customers
stuff.
sending you friends and family payments for legitimate products. That's kind of the no-no zone.
Yeah, I don't think anyone can actually send me friends and family once my PayPal switched to business. I think it eliminates it. But I just meant like on
this. That was fairly recent too. That was only a year or so ago. I think that got put into place. So I remember there was a big uproar about it, and a lot of people started paying a lot of fees.
Well, I mean, if you're supposed to be paying the fee, that's fine. But like, if I'm sending it to just like my friend Nikki, hers is a friends and family, so like I'll send it to her, and I'm like, well, I'm sure they'll make me pay a fee at some point, but for now, I'm not paying that fee if you don't make me. But that's the only break in the law that I do. It's not even breaking the law. That's fine. Okay, so tangent there. Sorry about that. So we're spending money at the end of the year so we can help bring down the profit amount. So for me, it's all about like perspective. What am I doing? What's my big picture here? What is my goal? My goal is I made a lot of money. I want the government to think I made less money. How can I spend some money that benefits me, not only in taking that big number down, but then also gives me things that I need that I was too afraid to buy or put money towards. So what else should we be doing at the end of the year?
Inventory, we kind of went over. That's where you're counting everything. Um, at the end of the year, really, you can do some checkups. Like if you have your sales numbers, you can kind of throw them into I mean, you can do it by hand on a 1040 tax form, or I'm sure there's free spreadsheets and stuff out there that mimic how the tax return goes. Or if you have a CPA or an accountant, a lot of times we can run those numbers for you too. But you want to make sure that your withholding, if you have a paycheck, or your quarterly estimates, if you're self-employed, hopefully cover what will be due in April, because there are penalties from the IRS for not withholding and not paying in estimates in real time.
Been there, done that. And
So like just make sure that you don't have a big balance due, because there is a quarter four payment that is due by January 15th. I'm gonna say, I'm getting sales tax and income tax mixed up, but it's due in the middle of January, and you can actually pay towards what you would owe in January to cover December, or to cover the quarter four of the previous year.
Okay.
So you kind of want to do that math and just make sure that you don't have a big balance due, or be ready for a big balance due.
But if you have a fancy accountant, then she can kind of help you.
We do it for you. Yeah.
Calculate things also throughout the year, so you don't have to necessarily worry about that.
If you have payroll, if you have employees, you want to definitely get all of your payroll forms. There's usually a quarterly form, a 941, and then a yearly form, and those need to be filed if you don't have someone doing it for you. So if you go through like Gusto or Paychex or ADP or something, usually they'll file those for you, but if they don't, that's something. End of year, really, that's really about it. End of year is more about setting things up for the new year than really dropping things. I don't know how to describe what's in my head.
That's fair. So what about January 1st? Are there things that we should be doing January 1st?
Okay, so I always tell people in January, check your withholding. Make sure that you don't need to increase it. If you get like an income bump, if your business is doing better, if your last year's numbers were better than the year before and you see it going up, check your withholding. Inventory purchases are fine in January, actually probably best in January, especially if you have the cash. You're going to want to look at any tax forms that come in. So when you go through like Shopify or Etsy, you might get a 1099, which shows you all the transactions that they process for you, like credit card transactions, and is used to kind of estimate income. It's not exact. It's a matching tool. It's not a type in the exact number and go sort of form. But
more like
those will start coming in.
Transaction summary of sorts?
Yeah, kind of more like a summary. Yeah. But those are usually released electronically through email or through your Shopify portal or whatever. PayPal does it, Stripe does it. Pretty much anyone who processes any sort of payments for you will get that to you, because they're actually required to now. It used to be a huge limit you had to hit before they would send you one, but that changed not too long ago.
It was like 2 years ago, and it was like $600 or something like that. Yeah.
So look out for those. Look out for stuff coming in the mail from states. A lot of times, if you're behind on anything, they'll send stuff in January to tell you to get it caught up. Really, I'm trying to think of what else, but
so the forms that come in, they're going to be your 1099s, your 1098s, and 1040s. I don't remember. I don't know what I'm talking about. I'm just saying words and numbers that I remember.
So it's funny because on your question sheet you put W-9s.
I know. I say that. Well,
it's a W-2.
See, I love that. I don't know what I'm talking about.
There is a W-9, but it's not what you think it is.
Like, I remembered this term. This is great.
That's okay. I had someone tell me they'd get me their WD-40 soon, and I was like, okay. I'm not even going to address that one.
So our W-9, what's a W-9? Does it exist?
The W-9 is for taxpayer identification numbers. So this is something you will give to A
So it does exist.
contractor,
I didn't make it
you
up.
give like a blank, no, you didn't make it up. So you would give this blank form to a contractor and they would fill it out with their details, and then that gives you their details to give them a
Okay.
1099 at the end of the year.
So
So we're getting into the
that
complicated part here.
So I knew I had filled it out. So
Mhm.
like an example is that Lauren's team sent me a W-9 to fill out, and then I would go and teach at her class. And at the end of the year, I got a 1099 that says how much they paid me.
Yep.
And so that's the relation there.
Mhm.
I knew that something was right there. W-2 is what I fill out when I go to get a job. Correct?
W-2 is, yeah, W-2 is your end of year traditional employment
Yeah.
pay stub, basically, that most people get. And then we have 1099s and 1098s. Those were both right. 1099s reports income and 1098s report deductions. And I always
Ooh.
remember that because 8 is less than 9, so we're subtracting, so it's a deduction.
Ooh, that's a
I like
handy tip right there.
my memory
I'm not
tips.
going to remember it, but I love that.
Yep. So 1099 would be like you said, your teaching income, right? And then a
Hmm.
1098 would be something like mortgage interest, which can be a
Okay,
deduction, or student loan interest, or tuition stuff. So
that's
different
fair. Right.
forms
That
reporting
makes
different
sense.
things. And
But
if you
they're supposed to come in, or they're
there's
supposed to be sent out by the end of January, correct?
most of them. Yep, there's
Yes.
some investments and some fund paperwork that can go until March.
Yeah, that's
But
why
if
we
you don't have
typically have
that,
to have ours scheduled a little bit later because we get
mhm,
some that come in late. But if you have a good tax lady like I do, then when that form comes in, she can just plug and play those numbers
mhm.
after we do the rest of
Yeah,
the
your
stuff.
business return is almost done. So,
I love that. I have questions
oh, I
about my
bet.
return.
I bet. We'll get there.
uh, well, this is the first year that like my only job is inventory,
Hmm.
apparently, but also I'm like, but what about all those other purchases I made? Aren't you supposed to know what everything means, like all the individual items? So don't I also do my normal spreadsheet, not my inventory one?
That's all in QuickBooks now.
So like all the receipts, like all the individual items.
Hmm.
That's nice.
Hmm.
Because I was like, what if she doesn't know that like this one has like inventory and supplies? I put notes on
I
my
mean, I make
receipts
my
for
best
you.
guess. I look for notes. I stick it in the uncategorized, category if I need to, and I ask you.
Okay, that's fair. Because
So
I was
I'll
like,
have questions for you too. But
I was good. I have all
for
my
the most
receipts.
part, like I know that boxes from Walmart are shipping. I know that, your
Yeah,
templates are and your goodies to put in. I'm thinking of the wrong person.
that's fair. That's fair. You have 118
They're like
other women and
118.
one other
Yeah.
man
Yep, one other
that
man.
you're.
That poor guy. I want to send him like a medal or something. Be like, only male client.
No,
But
that's fair. Okay, and so now I think the last like actual like specific question I have for you is what to look for and what to avoid when
oh,
you want to hire a tax professional like yourself.
all right. This one is good. The best way I've found to weed out people who don't understand what we do, is to ask them how they handle inventory. Because traditional CPAs or in-person firms will a lot of times they'll kind of tut it. They'll like, gloss over it because they don't understand that your craft room is jammed full of thousands and thousands of dollars of fabric.
Mm-hmm.
They don't understand the scope of what a lot of you do. They don't understand that you're not just going and buying fabric for one item.
Yeah.
You're buying thousands of dollars when it's on sale and then using it eventually, right? So
Yeah.
they don't understand the scope of that. If they don't know how inventory works, I wouldn't even continue. I would say thank you and move on.
Full stop.
That's if you sell products, of course.
Okay.
Another thing is the sales tax thing. If they don't have knowledge of the South Dakota versus Wayfair, which was the 2018 sales tax revision that started all of this economic nexus thing, if they don't know about that, they're probably not going to know much about nexuses. And you very well could get in trouble because they just don't realize that it could be multiple states. They're used to dealing with one state, one person, physical business. A
I have
lot of
a
CPAs do not understand e-commerce either.
Oh, true. The one that I talked to, really, he didn't know anything
Mhm.
about e-commerce. I do have a question about Nexus
Mhm.
that I just thought of. So, kind of like go to the Wayback Machine to question number 3, which was that what happens if you achieve Nexus and you don't do anything about it?
Eventually, realistically or legally? Because
Okay. Also, this sounds like a question that maybe I shouldn't ask and you shouldn't answer because people will maybe take advantage of that.
realistically, probably not much. If they do find out that you were selling in the state and you should have been paying taxes, then you will be on the hook for those taxes, whether or not you collected them or not from customers.
Correct.
And
So
the
when people
fees and
backtrack,
fines
that's what some people don't
get
know is that
big.
you have to back pay all that stuff
Hmm.
with fees.
With fees. Yep. And it can be 50 to $100 per return that
Right.
wasn't filed. So it can add up
Yep.
really quick. And then there's interest and it's a big to do.
Hmm.
Um, there is a chance as Shopify starts taking over more of these sales tax things that they will also be reporting to the states. And that might give the states a clue that maybe you should be filing, but you're not. But that hasn't happened yet. Legally, you're on the hook for whatever would have been collected and remitted since you hit that nexus.
Okay.
But again, realistically, it's kind of like speeding. Everyone speeds. A couple people get caught. How do they know you're not speeding if you don't have a radar gun, sort of thing,
Right.
right?
And
So
that's a state by state thing. That's
that is
not a
state by
federal
state. And
thing.
there are some states that will hound you. There are some states that are very, very on top of it. New York is a really bad one. I actually just did a sales tax audit for a client in New York, and they were trying to charge her sales tax based on her entire US sales, not just her New York sales. So it
Oh,
was
yeah.
a big thing. We had to prove that, they were out of state and that sort of stuff. But New York is really big on it. California, of course, is on top of it. And there's a couple other, Colorado's a big one. So each state kind of has its own pitfalls and
Yeah.
beware signs, and they're all different. But some of them go after it a little bit more aggressively than others.
Yeah. I have to imagine for sure. Okay. Sorry for that tangent. It just seemed like
Yeah,
a valuable question.
mm-hmm.
And so what else when hiring? So if they don't know anything about e-commerce, boot them.
Yep. E-commerce inventory.
Nexus.
You can ask them how they handle selling fees. So like your PayPal fees, your Stripe fees, all those sort of things. A lot of in-person CPAs won't even really know what that is, especially if they're in the older demographic. But those are expenses and pretty big ones usually. So those are a big one you don't want to miss.
It's a good percentage of your sales, every sale.
Right. And I would say if you're hiring someone for accounting and you're in e-commerce, ask them if they know what a clearing account is.
I don't
And
know what that is.
I'm not really going to get into it,
It's fair.
but if they say no and you are on Shopify, run.
Okay.
Because that's the proper way to do the accounting on the back end when you have an e-commerce source through something called a clearing account, which outside the scope, but if they don't know what that is, that's usually a big red flag.
Okay. And so when they're looking for a tax professional, one thing I found to be really difficult was to find one. Because you don't really know, it's hard to tell if somebody does the whole US or they do local only. And when you're searching on a place like Google, it's going to give you local only first. I don't necessarily want local only first. I want niche first is what I want, because I want them to understand my business, at least to an extent that they can properly do my taxes, not necessarily be 5 minutes down the road. That seems like something that's very difficult to weed through. And do you have any tips for someone doing that?
Word of mouth.
There you go.
If
That's
you
how
have
I
a
learned.
business, if you have a business that you follow or that, your friend owns a business, ask them, because if they're happy with who they're working with, then they'll tell you, right?
Yeah.
Hopefully. Another thing is when you're on Google or when you're looking around, you can put the word remote tax prep instead of just tax prep. That will usually weed out like the H&R Block and the Jackson Hewitt and like the little offices, which don't ever go to those if you have a small business. Just as a quick tangent.
No, I love that.
Ooh, stay away from
So
them.
we shouldn't be using, what's the TurboTax?
Do not use TurboTax. Oh, soapbox
Wait,
moment.
so they can maybe do that for their personal? Or
Yeah,
not even?
TurboTax for personal is fine.
Okay.
If you have a business, TurboTax assumes you have a business.
Oh.
They don't assume it's a little craft Schedule C. They ask you a bunch of questions, and a lot of times it won't even take you through the business like part of the questionnaire because you answer these questions and they go, "Oh, you don't have a business, you have a hobby."
Oh.
So TurboTax is a really, really bad one. I correct more TurboTax returns than any other software.
Ooh, that's fun. I bet you
Mhm.
love that every time.
Oh yeah. Hey, I've gotten good at it though.
That's
Tax Act is another one I like to stay away from with businesses. And I honestly don't know what else is out there. So
fair.
those are just
I
the
have
two
only
I never want to use.
had essentially someone like you or the other
Hmm.
one do our taxes since 2020. So
Yeah.
I don't see going away from that anytime soon because it's too comfortable. It takes something extremely uncomfortable and makes it very
Hmm.
comfortable. And one thing that I know that a lot of people say or use the term audit proof, and I wanted to touch on that. There's no such thing, right? But
I
right, if
hate
you
that term. I hate that term.
I know, because it's like there's no such thing. You can't
Hmm.
stop yourself from being audited, but you can set yourself up to where if you are audited, like if I got audited tomorrow and they were look justify all these business purchases, absolutely,
You would be able to.
I would be great because I am
Hmm.
terrified of that, so I don't do anything wrong. I
Yep.
follow pretty much
And
everything to
that's
the
all an
T.
audit really is.
Yeah,
Audit is a bad word, but in reality, it's just asking for verification.
yeah,
So if you look at it that way, if you get a letter that's saying you're being audited, like don't panic. They just need more information or need to verify something, and don't borrow more trouble than there is, right?
right,
Like, so don't go into a big frenzy over, oh, they need my W-2 from last year, right?
right,
Because that's not an audit like people think of an
right.
audit.
Right, that's fair. I mean, I panic every time I get any kind of form.
Yeah.
But it is nice to know that like I at least know enough to where I don't really have anything to worry about because there's nothing in my purchasing or that I do that because I'm just so strict about those purchases that I would have to worry about.
Mhm.
And I think that might be it. Do you have anything else about the big picture that is taxes and
Um,
the scary stuff about all that?
I had a couple notes about some of the biggest mistakes that I see, but
That I meant to ask that.
yeah, it's pretty. So some of the mistakes I see, especially on Schedule Cs, are round numbers.
Oh,
So you did not buy $100 in office supplies. Like that's too coincidental, right? So round numbers ending in zeros are a big red flag. That usually is because of estimating, and you're not technically supposed to estimate either.
right.
So another red flag. And then a lot of people doing depreciation wrong. So a lot of people
Okay.
trying to skip that part and just deduct equipment and stuff, which depreciation is its own beast. So
Mm-hmm.
I can absolutely understand why that happens, but it is a pain in the butt to fix.
Okay.
So my advice is, especially if this is your first year in business, get with a pro for the first year, ask them questions, see how they did it, see if they'll explain things to you. And if you feel comfortable after that doing it yourself, you'll be much better off. And if you don't, you go back to your pro. But someone jumping into business taxes just off the street with no prior knowledge is going to get lost in the weeds really quickly. And a lot
Yeah.
of things on the tax form that seem simple are not.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of hidden stuff behind the scenes. So just
Mm-hmm.
at least for that first year, try to get it done professionally, try to see how they do it, and try to get
Yeah.
familiar with it before you tackle it yourself.
Yeah. Yeah. Wrap your head around it. Get the big and the small pictures as you need
Hmm.
for what you have to do to
Yeah.
provide to a tax professional.
Yeah, it's absolutely a DIY thing if you understand it. You can absolutely do business taxes yourself if you understand how it works. But like I said, especially for that first year, it's best to have someone show you it first.
Yeah, for sure. Like I said, I don't think I could have ever done it myself that first year. That would have been too much. Thank you. Okay, so we're at that point in the show where we go to listener questions.
Hmm.
And this is called the final press pass because it's funny. So from Ash, she asks, in Texas, do I need to pay state city sales tax on services like technical editing, creating digital files, pattern writing for others, etc.?
That is a great question. And again, I don't know each state by heart, so I looked it up. And apparently services in Texas are 6.25%. So
Yeah.
depending on, it's so hard to answer individual state questions without like knowing what they do.
That's fair.
Yeah, Texas has some stipulations for like personal services, legal services that are generally not taxed, but from what I remember you saying, it was like graphic design stuff, right?
Yeah, so that's what she does. Yeah, she's
so
actually my
that would probably be taxable.
Yeah, she's my proofer for the
okay.
pattern. So like she gets money from me every year. So
yeah, but as far as sales tax, that shouldn't.
So I guess she's saying if she is charging someone, do I need to pay state city sales tax on services like, so she's providing a service, she's getting paid for, she's not paying sales or state tax on that, or is she? I don't know. I probably asked
she should not be charging sales tax on a service.
Okay.
Like that.
All right. Because she's going to just pay for that on the income side of things. Well, Texas doesn't have state income tax, right? Something like that.
I don't know.
You do my Texas taxes.
I probably should. I know, but there's 50-some states.
How dare you not remember every single fact about every single state
somewhere, but it's upstairs.
That's fair. No, I was like, we'll try. Okay, next question. This is a great question, and it was asked by two people, Laurel and Brittany, and they said, I'd love to know how someone, well, they both asked the same question, but I'm reading Laurel's question. I'd love to know how someone goes from having tracked nothing to going all in on taxes for their business. Like, do they have to backtrack and log every material purchase they made, or do they just try to get on the right track for the future?
Okay, so I'm assuming this is probably going to be mostly regarding inventory. That tends to be, what trips people up. Again, there's a legal answer and a realistic answer. Legally, you should be accounting for all of it.
I did.
Realistically, get a pro to work with to lead you through it, because we have a lot of shortcuts that can help a lot.
I didn't know that. I went through, because I took a picture of every bag I made, and I knew what I bought. I was able to find all my purchases, and then I just had to do my best guesstimate of what I used throughout the year by figuring out the pattern piece sizes and like how many of those pattern pieces, counting all the D-rings
working backwards.
Used. Yeah. Inspecting every picture to look at all those things.
And that's one way we do it. But yeah, theoretically, you should be backtracking.
Yeah. It was not fun. That was the worst way to get started about quote unquote getting legit, was backtracking, because first of all, the guilt I felt, and then the amount of work it took to start spreadsheets for the first time, but do that for 2 years, separate 2 years things, go through all those pictures, try and figure all that out. And that was before I was pattern designing. I'd have been screwed if I was pattern designing, because there's so many bags I just throw away. So I don't even take pictures of them, you know? But.
And those are all services I offer too. The inventory tracking, where I take your receipts and put them in a spreadsheet. I actually have software that does that for me, like I said. So, catching up on backtrack stuff, catching up on like prior returns, just all of that is all stuff within my wheelhouse that I've done for several people, and I'd be happy to help anyone who needs it.
So speaking of the inventory though, so you can help track the inventory purchasing, but we as businesses still have to measure and account for what's left over at the end of the year.
Unless you want to pay travel.
Oh,
I'll come
there
help.
isn't much to do here in San Antonio, but instead of me spending a week doing it and taking too many breaks because it's a bit soul-sucking sometimes.
Yeah, with my accountant, we were actually really good friends too, not just a business relationship. And she would fly out to Ohio every year, and we would get the employees together, and we'd do like a crock pot lunch, potluck thing, and we would just count all day, and we'd have music on and snacks, and it was a lot of fun, and it turned a chore into something a lot more fun. So if people want to pay for me to come help, I will absolutely come help.
I enjoy having you as my tax lady, but I will say it would make my skin crawl if I had somebody else in here folding my fabric or unfolding my fabric.
I get it.
I would
be the same way.
I could never. Okay, so this question was asked earlier, but I'm bringing it back up. Was what was the tax ID and how do you get one? And so this one was from Tara. We did talk about that before. She had another question, and let me find it real quick. And I think that one was asked already, but I'm going to verify.
Just to recap, you want an EIN, which is free. Go to irs.gov. Do not pay for it. And an EIN is different from a tax identification number. So EIN is for the business. Tax identification number is usually for a person.
Okay. The other one was about the difference between an LLC and other types of businesses and what would be best option for a small business, which I'm pretty sure we touched on heavily. So that is good. Okay, so I don't know if you recall, but at the end of the final press pass, there is a question for me from you. So I don't know if you were prepared or if you need a moment.
Yeah, actually, I want you to tell me what your pain points were before you got accounting help.
Okay, so definitely the sales tax stuff, especially the months leading up to hiring you on full-time as the accountant. Trying to figure out that Ohio sales tax was mind-boggling. Another thing was that I had international payments enabled, and so people would buy things using their own currency from my store. And I enabled that, and for like 2 months I didn't realize what was happening, but I had to go and all the sales through PayPal didn't convert. So I had to go and that was not fun. I had to go and find conversion rates for that day.
Oof. Yeah, I've done that.
And translate what that meant. So that would really suck for something like a pattern release, And so I have a lot of transactions over the course of like a week or two. That was pretty hefty. I'm actually very comfortable with the spreadsheets that I use. So I use the Shopify spreadsheet, the Etsy spreadsheet, the PayPal spreadsheet. And I didn't really need to use the PayPal once they essentially integrated. And then my inventory. I was really comfortable with those. No problem with that. Essentially, it was the sales tax and transitioning to S-Corp I would have never done or been willing to even consider without any professional help.
Right. Yeah, that makes sense.
Which even with professional help, it was still a pain in the ass.
Yep.
But no, that was, other than that, but it was because I went through the class. I had a CPA or an accountant that I could reach out to at any time and be like, I have this question, help me help myself. And so I was able to get over the hump of knowledge, and at least get to the other side to have a basic understanding that could make me not be so afraid and then go tell everybody else to get legit, because I know you're not legit because you're not doing inventory. I know it. I know you're not doing what you're supposed to do.
They get mad when you call them out on it, though.
Some of them do. I don't do it. I really don't do it. I think I've only done it for a couple of my friends and been like, you really should be doing that. Because I know how uncomfortable it makes people to even talk about tax stuff, But, I just want people, I don't want you to have the fear that at any time, if you do get audited, you do have to be afraid. I'm stressed about everything else enough. I don't need to add that to my daily life.
Exactly. Yep.
So, all right. So the next part is the quote or mantra that you could leave other people with. I thought maybe it would be like, don't listen to TikTok advice. I thought maybe you used that too early. But I normally do mine first, which is for this, I thought it was very fitting, which was just do it afraid. Yes, it's scary. It, like I said, it's a little bit like having my doctor come on and tell people all my shame. But it's a very vulnerable place to have somebody look at all your finances, to look at there's only a few people in most people's lives that truly know that level of transparency about how you're living your life. And so that is terrifying. It is embarrassing sometimes. It's very humbling. But just do it anyway. It's terrifying. Do it anyway. Do it afraid. Start your business. Do the proper paperwork. Do it afraid. If you mess it up, believe me, they tell you, and they're not going to fine you for filling out the form wrong unless you do it with bad intentions, so just do it afraid.
Yep. So mine is kind of similar. I've been doing this 3-2-1 launch thing because I'm really bad at procrastination. I'm really bad about waiting for motivation to come, and we all know it doesn't always come. So if I'm putting something off, I will sit there and I will go 3-2-1 launch, and I will launch myself up and start it. And something about the countdown and the quick jump up has been working really well. So that's kind of been mine lately. But overall, my life mantra is just this too shall pass
Yeah.
because everything's going to pass, right?
Yeah.
And there's no emergencies in taxes. I drill this into my employees. I drill this into my clients. There's always going to be time. The worst that's going to happen is money, which I understand is hard, right? Because none of us want to be poor. None of us want to pay more than we need to pay. But at the end of the day, it's still money. This is not brain surgery. This is not, a firefighting escapade where you're saving people's lives. Like, it's paperwork. So don't give it that much of your brain. Don't give it that much of your stress.
Easier said than done, but I agree. I think once you kind of get some of that done, you start the process, you realize, again, they're not going to fine you for filling out the form wrong. And if you don't know, call them and be like, and you don't have a tax professional, right? Call them and be like, I want help understanding how, and you might have to wait on hold for 30 minutes, but that person's going to tell you exactly what you need to do and what you're right or what you're wrong about. It is helpful for sure.
And if you are working with a tax professional, we do have a dedicated practitioner line. So we can get you talking to someone a lot quicker than if you were to just call yourself. So
really?
Don't be afraid to reach out and hit up your tax pro and just be like, hey, I have this question or I need this clarification.
That's nice. Okay, so the last part is the socials and where can people find you? Where can people look at the services you offer? All that good stuff.
Well, socials are kind of empty right now because I just hired someone to start that up because I am horrible at social media. I don't even think I've updated my personal Facebook in like 2 years. Yeah, so socials are kind of bare, but the website is bookkeepingbyket.com and all the social handles are the same, Bookkeeping by Ket. So I'm on Facebook, Instagram, and whatever else my social media person puts me on eventually. There is a contact me form through my website. There is also a link to directly book tax prep if you know that you want to go with me, you don't have to talk to me first, whatever. If you have that much faith in me, you can directly book through the website. There's also that 30-minute free consultation link under consultations, are there? Let's see. Under booking. So that is a free 30-minute consultation. I say one per person, but in reality, it's just kind of my catch-all. So if anyone has questions or wants to get to know me or see if we're a good fit, that would be where you would go to check that out.
Perfect. Okay, well, I really appreciate you giving me this time, and I have no doubt that a lot of people will find this very informative.
I hope so.
Again, nobody sue us, please. Thank you. We're just here for the good.
Educational information only.
But yeah, thank you so much. I appreciate your time.
No problem. It was good to be here.
For those of you that have stuck it out this far, thank you so much. I know that was a lot of jargon, a lot of acronyms, all things like that. And if this is your first time learning about it, it may be definitely a little overwhelming, but I hope that it was informative and I hope that maybe it cleared some things up for you. Please know, again, as I had said in the intro and we said in the episode, this is not intended to be tax advice or legal advice. It's just meant to be informative for you. You would think that it would be a little weird that I love kind of taxes so much now, but I think that I have gotten to kind of love the understanding that I have. Not so much taxes. It's more of like, because I've had the opportunity to have it, no sir, please don't rub on the mic. Thank you. to have it demystified and to take away that fear of, oh my gosh, I'm going to get audited tomorrow. There's a whole comfort level to that I really just want other people to experience as well, because I've been there. I've been in the position of not being legit. I've been in the position of becoming legit. And then now I am. And I'm telling you, there's so much relief and just comfort in being in this place where I'm at now. And I want more people to have that, because I know so many of you don't. So I highly suggest investing in the getting legit part of your business, because it really does pay off just in your nerves. All right, now it's time to get in the Seam Society shoutouts. I have an Oliver right here in front of me, so I'm going to pet him as I do it. So I'm going to do it a little bit differently this time, just for the sake of timing with the length of the episodes, but also so it's a little less redundant. If you'd prefer I'd go back to the other way, I can totally do that. Just let me know on Patreon. So the following Seam Society members have been part of the Seam Society since the first month the Patreon has been available. So thank you so much for putting your faith and support in me, and I hope that I continue to earn your subscription. Tara V, Jessica A, Hua V, Nicole H, Olivia C, Stacy K, and Jabby S. Thank you so much for your continued support. And the second group, you are the ones who found me in the second month of the podcast. So you have had an ongoing subscription for 2 months now. So thank you so much for that. And again, I hope to earn your continued support with future episodes. Greg H, Laurel Z, Nyasha J, Ash, Sam W, Eileen, and Jess P. Thank you so much for supporting Splitting Seams. So that wraps up another episode. Please support the show if you can by subscribing to the Patreon. And wherever you're watching or listening, please hit the like, subscribe, leave a review, leave a comment, engage somehow. It all matters. Thanks again, and I will see you in 2 weeks.